Hey now, Booker Corrigan show, and we've got a couple nice guests lined up for you now. We got Scottie Growney from University of North Carolina. She played in that Under Armour All-American senior game. I got the pleasure to interview her on the sideline, which is always great. I was also about 60 pounds heavier when I did that interview, so we'll have some fun with that. After she's on, and we're going to keep her on, and then we're going to go right to Dox Aitken, who happens to be her first cousin. So we'll talk with them for a little while, then we'll let Scottie Rose go be herself, and we'll keep Dox on. We have a list of questions for both of them. Everything's going to work out just fine. But with no further ado, let's bring the actual talent on, and let's get Scottie Rose on board. Hopefully she's going to pick up her phone and we're not going to have any issues.
Hello.
Hi, Scottie Growney, Booker Corrigan, and you are live on the Booker Corrigan show. What a treat. Glad to have you.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, now tell me, emotionally, what hit you when you heard that the season had been canceled and that it was going to take another year for Carolina to win a national championship?
The first thing that really hit us was just like what was going to happen to the seniors, because before then the NCAA didn't come out with the eligibility, so there were just a lot of unknowns and a lot of questions. But I think we were all really disappointed, just because we were having such a great season, such a fun season with such a unique group of girls. So I mean, it was really sad to think about not being with them every day and competing for ACCs and a national championship.
Scottie Growney, our guest here on the MedStar Hotline. Scottie Rose, give us a perspective, because one of the things that I think has been unbelievable about your career is coming back from that terrible knee injury. Tell us about the challenge of coming back from that knee injury.
Yeah, I mean, so I tore my left ACL my junior year of high school. I think it was like in November, and it was really hard, coming to terms with the fact that I wouldn't be playing my junior year. We had my high school had just lost in the state finals. That June, earlier that June. And so we were really ready to go and compete that coming spring. So at first it was really hard for me to have like a positive outlook on it. I think I was really, really upset, mad at everything, but there was really nothing I could do. And so after talking with my parents and figuring out my surgery and all, I decided to, just have the most positive attitude that I could, because it would really help with just the healing process as a whole. And in the end it did. And I tried my best to be the loudest teammate on the sideline. I actually think I did the Twitter for my high school team, posting scores and whatnot. So it ended up being a fun experience. I learned a lot about myself, and about my body, and just little things, that I didn't know was there. So that was, it was definitely one of the worst things that have happened to me, just because it really, I grew, character-wise. I just became a better person for it.
Great to hear the wisdom and the recovery of that terrible knee injury from Scottie Growney, the daughter of Scott and McCall Growney, two of my favorite people. And it's great to have a friend like Scottie Rose on the show. SRG, tell me about the honor and how amazing it was to be selected to play in the Under Armour All-American senior game, even after having that knee injury.
It was pretty special. participating in Under Armour I had been doing since my freshman year. So it was one of those things where you've watched so many great players go through and perform at such a high level. And it was really something I dreamt about. And then I got the call, and it was like, wow, I can't believe I made it. I was so happy. Another girl from my high school actually got the call too, so it was really great to play with her, and then a bunch of my future teammates as well. So overall, I mean, it was just such a great experience. To play with those girls and against some of those girls, and it was really truly one of a kind.
And Scottie Rose, I do need to take this opportunity to remind you that even though I did go to Radnor, and Conestoga is one of our rivals, I appreciate you not mentioning it's Conestoga, but she was a star at Conestoga High School, who is one of the rivals of my old high school. She and I were just a couple years apart in high school, so we never knew each other in those days because I was class of '83 and she was 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Now, one of our other segments is the Kelly & Associates Vintage Game. What is your favorite NCAA game that you've ever seen or been a part of or watched?
Oh, that's tough. Well, probably to watch, I would say, would either be the 2013 Women's National Championship game, or the 2016. Both were, 2013 was in Villanova, which is right in our backyard. So that was an amazing game. I believe it was like three overtimes, back and forth. So many close calls for Maryland scoring, and same with North Carolina. And then after everything, I mean, they finally scored, and it was just one of those games. I mean, it was, no one really gave up. And it was really, truly great to see the will of those players at the time. And I was at that game as well, so that was pretty special. And this was before I was even committed or anything. So, I mean, that was really, really great. And then 2016 was also really special just because the men's and women's team both won. And that doesn't really happen too often. So, and I was able to go to both games on Sunday and Monday because they were also both in Philadelphia.
Right.
So it was those two were, I mean, and then the men's won in overtime. So, I mean, it was just, both games were really thrilling and just really fun. And I remember sitting and seeing a bunch of the girls, watching the men's players, and cheering as loud as they could, and they had the national championship trophy with them in the stands. So it was really a special moment to see that and know that that's where I was going to school with some of those girls. And so that was just really, really fun. I think those two were definitely probably the two more special games to watch.
And if I'm going to go ahead and add in my favorite, the third game that we'd like to talk about is that Penn State at Hopkins last year in the spring. My buddies Riley Masterson and Katie Garvey doing unbelievable work for Penn State. And I still, I get a little choked up when I think about a chance I had to do that game, to do play-by-play for it, and bring some praise to some people who I absolutely love and find near and dear, as I do Scottie Rose Growney, our guest. Scottie Rose, what discussions have you had with fellow UNC players ever since this whole happened? What are some great conversations you've had?
I think a lot of people are just talking about like what could have been.
Yeah.
And kind of how we're all stuck, at home, antsy to like get back into the rhythm of things. But I think everyone took a little bit of time to kind of get over what happened. And some, I'm sure, are still not over it. But I think everyone understands the severity of what's going on and has come to terms that that's what the decisions were for the health and safety of others. And so but I mean, everyone's really excited to get back, I think, already.
Yeah.
You know,
Unfortunately, that's
it's
not the case. It's not going to happen.
I know,
Yeah.
but just thinking about, fall, even next spring, we're just so eager to get back with each other and be working towards that goal again. I think we keep texting each other and be like, God, I miss you guys. Like, even though I see you literally every day for a full 8 months, like, I really miss you right now. But yeah, I mean, it's been hard for sure. But I think everyone has definitely taken a positive outlook on a lot of what's been going on, and taking moments to spend time with their family and friends, and if they're stuck in quarantine with them. So, but yeah, so I mean, it's all, I would say for the most part, it's been pretty good. But still, just kind of, there's still some unanswered questions, that we have. But
Sure.
as time goes by, we're figuring it all out. So.
One more question for you before we bring Dox on for the three of us. We have a segment called the Warrior Player to Player. What advice do you have for high school lacrosse players right now who want to become the best possible version of themselves?
Yeah, I would say just take the time you have right now to put in the work. I think the more work you put in when no one is watching is what will make you a great player. So going out and shooting and doing wall ball for just 15, 20 minutes a day. Just never stop practicing, and always know that you can always get better, that there's really no limit to how good you can be. That's what I would say, and especially with all the free time that a lot of us have right now, it's like perfect to really just work on the things that you didn't think you had time to do. So I mean, it is a really great opportunity for a lot of girls and players just to put some work in.
Great to hear from Scottie Rose. Scottie Rose, now I'm going to ask you to bear with me while we get old Doxy on the call. I'm going to click add call. I'm very good at this because I do it every week. Dox, here we go. Calling him up. And you're on hold now. Here comes Dox. I love that.
Hello?
Dox, Booker Corrigan, you're on with Booker on his show, and
how's it going?
Your cousin Scottie Rose Growney. Say hi, SRG.
Hi.
Scottie, what's up?
Hi, Dox.
This is such a treat to have you two on. Dox, thanks so much for taking some time out of the schedule. I know you guys have some online classes and professors who are banging on you. And I have the same question for both of you. Dox, to smooth you into the interview, I have to ask you, what was it like and how important was it to be a multi-sport athlete in high school, and how has that helped you excel in the sport of lacrosse?
I think it was really important. First off, I think just the notion of not getting burnt out. I feel like that kind of happens more often. You kind of always had another sport to look forward to at the change of the season. And also just the transfer of skills. I mean, I played football, a little bit of basketball, not for the high school, but there's just a lot of similarities, and you can pick up a lot of things from different sports and then attribute that to your game in the spring. So I think just like with football, it's like physicality, speed, quickness, separation. Basketball, a lot of it's like defense techniques, pick and roll, like fundamentals like that. So I think it all helps. But I think for me, most importantly, it allowed me to look forward to something else at the change of the season and not get too burnt out with one sport.
Yeah, I love that perspective on it. That's Dox Aitken from University of Virginia, Scottie Rose Growney from University of North Carolina. Scottie Rose, multi-sport athlete growing up. How does that help you?
Yeah, I would say about the same, just how each sport transfers differently to lacrosse. Like Doc said, with basketball, it's a lot of the defensive stuff. I played soccer, so that really helped with like body control and footwork. But yeah, I mean, I think it was really great to have the opportunity to play with like different groups of girls, because not everybody played lacrosse, and so it was good having different friendships through each sport. And having those different teams. But yeah, I would just say that it makes you a better athlete overall to have all those different sports.
Was there a sport that you were not a star in? Because I know obviously you played in the Under Armour All-American game. Was there a sport that you struggled in?
Honestly, basketball.
Okay.
I kind of actually got made fun of for the way I dribbled the ball. But I was a little, sometimes I was a little too fast with my feet, and I like lagged behind with
A lot of
dribbling.
travel.
So I mean, I was sometimes moving too fast for that. But that's one of the reasons why I didn't play for high school, just for fun.
And Dox, tell me, what's a great conversation you've had with someone, a teammate from UVA, ever since this whole tragic news came down for our entire country, not just sports, but when the news broke that this was so serious? What's a great conversation you've had with somebody?
Let's see. I think I was in a long car drive to Baltimore with Mike Krause.
Yep.
And we were just kind of reflecting on just our careers up to that point. And obviously there kind of still is that blanket statement that the NCAA had kind of issued, but we were just kind of reflecting on some really good memories that we had, like our favorite games, like as players, winning a couple championships, and kind of starting off when we got there, we didn't win an ACC game our freshman year, and then we kind of had to really grind hard our sophomore year to get a couple in there and just kind of see the progression of the program and just reflecting on some good memories we had. That was a pretty good conversation.
Any news about next year? I mean, I know you obviously before this whole thing broke, you and I were committed to go play football at Villanova. Aside from the fact that I was absolutely the worst high school football player possibly ever, where are you as far as next year? Is it up in the air, or have you come to any conclusions?
Yeah, it's still up in the air.
Okay.
I had a conversation with Coach Tiff a couple days ago, and I think the ideal situation would be going to Villanova in the fall and playing, and then coming back to UVA in the spring. But God knows what the rules are, so that would be pretty crazy. But that would be probably ideal for me. So we talked about that. But other than that, I haven't given it too much thought, just because everything's been so crazy, and it's still kind of raw. But I know, like, I definitely want to play football, and I feel like there's some stones to be turned over with lacrosse, with college lacrosse as well. So yeah, but I haven't fully decided.
Scottie Rose, a question for you, since you and Dox are cousins and you've obviously known each other and played a lot of catch in the backyard. Scottie Rose, what went through your mind when UVA won the national championship last year in lacrosse, and Dox was a huge part of it?
Well, I think I was really proud of him, obviously. Like he was saying, they had come a really long way from his freshman year. But what was really so special about it was that I think literally every one of our family members were able to attend, because again that was in Philadelphia. So I think that was really special for him, and I think it was great just because it was in the Link, and Dox is a huge Eagles fan. So I think even just playing in there was really special to him. But no, I mean, I think it was just really a really great moment to see, see it all come together for their team. I wish I could have gone. I wish I could have been there, but I was really happy that everyone else was able to go and cheer him on and support and be there for the celebrations.
Scottie Rose Growney joining us with her cousin Dox. Scottie Rose, thanks so much for the time. I'm going to keep going with Dox here, but I'm going to let you go. I totally appreciate it. I love you. I can't wait to see you at the Masterson's house at some point very, very soon.
Love you. See you. Thank you.
All right, you got it.
Bye.
Now I have... Oh, here we go. Dox, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Love you, man. All right, let's talk about some stuff. The Kelly & Associates vintage game. The most popular college lacrosse game that was ever played was the 1989 national championship game. It's considered the best game ever. For me, the 1981 game sticks out because I was, 15 years old, and I was able to watch, the next generation of great players. What's a game, a vintage game, an old game that you look at, whether it's 3 years ago or 30 years ago, that you think is just a phenomenal athletic event?
I I think the number one game that comes to mind as a spectator for me is the 2011 national championship game.
Okay.
Virginia versus Maryland.
Yep.
At M&T Bank. I remember I went there with my friend Tyler, and that is kind of what solidified as my interest in wanting to go to Virginia. I mean, I had always grown up watching them on TV and stuff, but that was one of the first times I'd seen them in person, and I think one of the first times I'd seen them, in the Final Four. And I remember we were probably 10 rows back, and it was a great game. I mean, I guess it was a 2 or 3 goal game, but just like Virginia's zone defense and their offense really pulled it together.
Steele Stanwyck.
After what kind of seemed like a pretty tumultuous season, with they were about 500, and then they made some changes to their roster and their personnel, and it just seemed like they played so well, and they made that huge run at the end. And I remember watching Colin Briggs score 4 goals in that game. That was pretty awesome too. I looked up to him growing up as well, so that was pretty awesome.
Do you happen to remember the game time temperature for that game?
It was so hot. I remember.
I remember.
Close to 100 maybe.
They interviewed Dom Starsia, the head coach at UVA at the time, at halftime, and I felt like they'd already poured the Gatorade bucket over his head. It was that. I mean, and it's just one of those days where it was hot and humid. It was awful. We have a segment called the Warrior Player to Player. What advice do you have for high school lacrosse players who are trying to become the best possible version of themselves right now?
Oh, right now?
Yeah, like during this time that's crazy, and they have some time, not necessarily time off, but they have free time.
Honestly, I would say with the amount of video there is up on YouTube and various media outlets, there's so much film on great players, and I think you should, no matter what position you are, you pick a game or a player, or just a combination of those things, and just watch a lot of film and kind of see what they do, study how they move, how they react, whether they play defense, kind of their positioning. So I think, as limited as it is to go outside and get some work in, I think you can definitely do some mental reps online and watching some film of some really great players.
Let me take you back to Saturday of Memorial Day weekend last year. Duke and Virginia go into overtime. What is your mindset at the end of regulation? What's going through Dox Aitken's mind?
Well, after Ian scored with 12 or 13 seconds left, I kind of just had that itch. I think a lot of people on our sideline had the same thing, that there's one more play to be made out there, and we all just felt that one of us was going to be the ones to make that play. So there was honestly, in the pregame huddle before face-off of overtime, there was a lot of smiles, and it was just there was so much trust that was in that huddle that we just kind of knew that one of us was going to make that play. So it was obviously there was still more work to be had, but it just kind of felt like it was our moment, and it was our time to seize. And I would say at first there was some smiles, and then it was just kind of back to business, and yeah.
And when Ian scored the game winner, put your emotions into words.
Well, I get laughed at it for now, but I had no idea what to do with myself, because Ian started running, and I trying to take my helmet off, and then we didn't win the championship yet, so I wasn't going to take my helmet off, but I was going to throw my gloves on the ground, and then I decided not to do that. And then I was going to throw my stick too, and it was all in a split second of 3 seconds of all those
I need the stick
to throw the gear off.
Yeah.
If you go back and look, I really struggled to decide what to do with myself.
I love it. One of the honest guys. You know what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to loop in Coach Nostrant, because he has been calling. Yeah, and he is one of my absolute favorite people as well. So we're going to add him into this call. See if we get him to pick up. Dox might be on hold. I love Dox.
Yo.
Coach Nostrant, I got you on the line with Dox Aitken at the same time. Welcome to the show. You're live on YouTube. Say hi to Dox.
Coach, what's going on?
Dox, how you doing, buddy?
Good. Pretty bored, but I'm glad to be on this show with Booker. It's definitely a great way to pass some time.
Yes,
It's the most exciting thing in the week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Hey, Dox, some might even call it nifty. Yeah.
Nice win.
Yeah. I gave you about 12 and a half minutes. I mean, what
I was
more
trying to weave it in with one of the questions, but I didn't see a great opportunity.
You just force it. That's the race to nifty. Coach Nostrant will tell you. Sometimes you just got to take the bull by the horns. That's how he handles his business. Coach Nostrant, what advice are you giving to players, whether they're your current Gilman players or your past Haverford players or just kids that you're in touch with? What advice are you giving them on how to make the best use of their time?
Book, it's all the same stuff that you hear, but it's just, trying to be your best self, trying to be a great son, trying to do for others, staying connected, all those little things that we haven't had to think about, thank goodness, for a long, long time. But just, again, starting with yourself and going out from there.
Love it. And Dox, let's talk about another thing. Do you have any other UVA guys who you want to give a shout out to before I let you go for just incredible performances? Because you have so many of them that I think are phenomenal kids. Or do you just want to go whole roster?
Yeah, I'll give the whole roster a shout out, but first guy comes to mind with 20 clutch goals is Labs. Number 3. He scores like the most clutch goals, but also celebrates harder when one of his teammates scores. So he's my guy. So I want to give him one.
Love it. Thanks, Dox. I'm going to let you go. I appreciate your time, and I can't wait to see.
You very much.
Can't wait to see you at the Masterson's house.
Yeah, absolutely. See you soon.
You got it, man.
We'll talk to you, Coach.
Yep, you got it. Coach Nostrant is on the MedStar Coaches Hotline. Coach, how do you put into words coming to Gilman, getting off to a good start, and having it pulled away from you the manner and how it was? How do you articulate the scenario?
It's really hard to, especially because we had 23 seniors who, have embraced me from last May. So it's been tough sledding the last week or so when we kind of found out. But as I've told my 3 kids are with me, my 3-bedroom condo in Philly right now. We're all in the same boat. So we're not feeling sorry for ourselves. We're feeling everyone's feeling the same pain. So it's tough, that's for sure.
And, Coach, you've been around the game for as long as anyone. Well, not anyone. I don't want to paint you in too old a picture. But we have a segment called the Kelly & Associates Vintage Game. What NCAA game sticks out to you as something that you just go back to and look at, or you wish you could watch over and over?
Well, you triggered me a little bit, and I went back and watched the '83 game on YouTube, which was at Rutgers.
Yep.
Hughes Hopkins. It was a phenomenal game. I had my best friend from Baldwinsville playing up there, playing defense, Kevin Sheehan, and just the names on the field, Brad Kotz, Timmy Nelson, John DiTomaso, Brian Holman in the goal, Del Dressel. It was awesome. The late Randy Lundblad scored a big goal late in that game. That was a phenomenal game at a great venue, Rutgers. So that would be right up there for sure.
And if I remember correctly, in '83, Syracuse was down 12-5 in the third quarter of play. And at that point, Brad Kotz, who was one of the best offensive middies they had, was also taking faceoffs. Do you remember those days?
I was thinking it's so great to talk to you because that's exactly. He was taking faceoffs, scoring goals, getting ground balls. He was the master of the one-handed ground ball. And just watching that game, it was a game of runs, and Kotze was phenomenal. Timmy Nelson was kind of a prototypical feeder. Yep. He had detail all over him, but he'd step back and find guys inside. So really fun game to watch. Not a whole heck of a lot of good team defense going on either side of the ball there, but a lot of fun offense. The Flea, Pete Scott had a bunch of goals, so really fun game to watch. And that was back when the ball came out of the stick a little bit, right? So you get the ball on the ground, and it was fun.
Yeah, and when you mentioned that Tim Nelson was being defended by John DiTomaso, he's a guy who played for Team USA 4 times for a 16-year period. Yeah. He was a defenseman for Team USA, so it's not like he was being guarded by me.
No, some really good players, no doubt.
In our Warrior player-to-player segment, what's the best advice you give kids now, or even when you're on the field and you're coaching them, and before this chaos broke loose? What's some of the best advice you give kids?
I think just doing all the little things really well. Attention to detail on how to get a top ground ball. The ball's on the ground 60 or 70% of the time. So doing the little things. Another thing I tell my guys at Gilman and at Haverford was, make a tough, great play and then move it on. Like let somebody else make the next great play. A lot of times kids have a tendency to make a really spectacular play, and then they want to make another one right away. It usually results in a turnover or something like that. So just that play you're going to make in that moment is the biggest play you can make. And so I think that's important.
You come off to me as an old school breed of coach, and I think you might get some of that from the great Terry Corcoran, for whom you played at Washington College. But then I also heard you reference Brad Kotz as the master of the one-hand ground ball. Where are you on that as far as the two-hand ground ball versus the one-hand ground ball?
I'm kind of – I was rethinking that as I watched Kotze today too. I'm a big proponent of two hands on your stick all the time, really. But I do think there's times when you can use your body and shield yourself a little bit and go get a ground ball with one hand. A lot easier to do it now, Booker, we're playing on turf all the time. That game that I watched was on grass. But Kotze just seemed to, he got his one hand down. He got the ball up and out. And the other thing that I noticed in that game was a lot of times guys were getting ground balls, but they were pushing it to areas where they knew their teammate was, which you don't see a lot of nowadays. And I thought that was almost commonplace watching the YouTube of that game a few hours ago.
And one of the things that I always said as a coach is play the ball to an open area. In the one-on-one ground ball drills, it's interesting to hear. You hear from the stands, the dads who, two hands on the ground ball. They probably never picked up a ground ball with one hand or two hand or three hands, but they choose the right to say that, and that's their prerogative. But at times, the situation calls for a full speed one hand ground ball. Just don't miss it, and if you keep missing it, you're going to watch the rest of the game from the sideline. It's great to have Coach Don Nostrant from the Gilman School, but also decades at Haverford School. When you look back at your time at Haverford School, what are you most proud of?
Oh, just building a program from scratch almost. I mean, they had a decent tradition up there in 1990 when I arrived, but putting a staff together and coaching with some great friends, but great lacrosse people, and then having administration and athletic directors and people that allowed me to go down to Baltimore and play the Gilmans and the BLs and the Loyolas, playing St. Anthony's, most recently over the course of the last 5 years, creating a national schedule and not being afraid to compete with the better teams, I think really allowed us at Haverford to become one of the best programs in the country, and you gotta play the best to try to be the best. So that probably sticks in my mind the most.
Take me back a little bit in your career at Haverford. It was 2012 when you guys went undefeated. Is that correct?
2011. First one, yeah.
So, and Nody, I got to make a confession here. In 2011, you guys came down and played McDonough at McDonough. I think you won the game 12-10. We broadcast the game, and one of the parents gave me the laminated schedule card. And I will tell you exactly what my thought was when I looked down at it. I was like, wow, it's a great schedule. there's no way they go undefeated. How was that team able to accomplish the undefeated season?
I think we had 11 or 12 D1 kids, but more importantly, I think we had probably 7 or 8 guys that were starters on the football team that year. And Mike Murphy was the coach of the football team then. They had a really good fall. Walrath, Hopfeld, Walters, McGrath, we had Connor Kelly in the goal. We just had a bunch of guys who knew how to compete. They weren't just lacrosse players; they were athletes. And I'll never forget. It would be Coach Metzbauer, Coach Malvern team, and in the last game of the year, 4-3. We had 2 goals. We had 2 goals on the board with about 40 seconds to go. Walrath scored them both, but Joey McCallion won those face-offs against a really, really good Drew Kennedy, and Joe just battled and competed. And so I think the fact that those guys they were athletes first, lacrosse players second, really helped us when the chips were down, which they were more than a few times that year.
I got to tell you, my dad, who passed away about 5 years ago, is smiling down right now because when I was the head coach at McDonough, we had a play day, and Radnor came down and played somebody, and they lost the game 5-2. And he constantly was on the ride home. He called me. He said, "How do you score 2 goals in a lacrosse game? How do you score 2 goals? How do you score 2 goals in a lacrosse?" So to hear you say you basically played a game, and you scored 2 goals, except for the last 40 seconds. And the other part where I get to laugh at myself a little bit, which was another trait my dad taught me, was the next game we played was against St. Paul's. And it was up and down, back and forth. We had Tyler Fiorito. They had Stuart Wheeler in the cage. They had Chris Clements on the field. And the final score of the game was 3-2. And it was the most up and down 3-2 game I've ever seen. But I had to call my dad on the way home and say, "We just lost the game 3-2, buddy. So don't feel so bad." Your
dad was one of the great ones. I got to tell you that. I love him.
I tell you what, he could make anything seem like it was the premier event, whether it was a simple round of golf, lunch at Joe's place with John Beeger, or driving to a Princeton game to see a bunch of kids he'd never heard of. So he certainly had that gift.
I'd throw another one in there, Book. I'd say jumping into Lake Placid with your brother GT on the back of Beach's boat was a highlight of watching him jump in there. It was freezing cold. And he got right back up to the surface in a hurry.
Oh, I bet he did. Fastest he ever got in the water since his Navy days. That's great. What are your thoughts on your former player, Grant Ament, who played for you at Haverford and just finished at Penn State, and he announced he's going to forego his extra year? What are your thoughts there, Eddie?
Well, I just think he is he's such an advocate of the game of lacrosse. He was Haverford lacrosse and Penn State lacrosse, and he made his teammates in both of those programs love the game as much as he did. He was he's a gear guy, he's a tradition guy, he's a hard work, but do it with a smile on your face. So, from the standpoint of not playing another year at Penn State, I respect and understand that. It would have been his 6th year. I feel terrible for him, but he'll he's going to be playing somewhere in the PLL or the MLL and doing the same things that he did at Penn State. But his smile and his ability to make everyone around him feel better and play better was something that I've never seen more. And look at, I've coached some good ones, Sapinski, Aitken, some really, really great players. But Grant he loved everything about the game. He loves everything about the game. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why it was easy for him to kind of step back and go ahead and see what that next stage of his life is going to be.
And I've said for years, I agree with you that you're just watching Grant play. I had the good fortune to cover him a couple times when you guys were at Haverford, and then obviously the Penn State stuff. And one of the things I want to kind of mention right now is I was supposed to do the Hopkins-Penn State game, and it's been canceled. and I could certainly sulk about that. And I've decided instead of sitting home and sulking, I'm going to do a clothing drive for a charitable organization down here called the Helping Up Mission. And I hope that people will gravitate towards that and help pull through with that stuff. If you're around, I'd love to have you take part in that in some way, shape, or form, and we'll go from there. Nody, thanks so much for your time. We'll definitely have you on again this spring or before the summer gets going. Tell us a little bit about Ascension Lacrosse.
I'm really excited about Ascension. Started up here in Philly with a partner, Matt Duraco, who really started it down in North Carolina. And Gino Briaco, the head coach at Loyola, and I decided to kind of get it going down in Baltimore. So it's club neutral training, positional fundamentals. It's everything. It's not anti-club. It's just everything to enhance players' game, to make their game better, so they can bring it back to their team, whatever that team is, whether it's township, rec, club, sub-varsity, varsity, or even at some point in time, NCAA. Mm-hmm. We have great coaches, great teachers, and it's about getting better at your position and becoming a better lacrosse player, but it's also bigger than that. It's leadership, it's respecting the game, it's playing it the right way, all those little things that I think you value as much as I do. Yep. So hopefully when the dust settles here and we can get back to somewhat of a normal life, Ascension really takes hold down there. I'm really excited about it.
And that's Ascension Lacrosse. And as Coach Nostrant was just saying, they help fill those gaps that club doesn't always get to, that high school doesn't always get to. They get that training stuff and those things that kids need to succeed on the field and, again, off the field. The character development is second to none. So thanks. Nody, thanks for coming on the show. Love you. Can't wait to have you on again.
You got it, Book. Thanks.
All right. Awesome time talking with Coach John Nostrant. I will tell you, I got a couple messages from, we're going to have to move it up. Jamie Monroe will not be able to come on the show today, and I apologize, but he is he's a mind in the sport of lacrosse. He went to Brown University, played with my cousin Tommy Dwyer, and one of the things that he has adopted is this ability to analyze a player's game. And he's shown me some of the films where he will take 2 or 3 games that a college player, a Division I player, say it's UVA or Duke or Penn or Cornell, and they'll look at every time that player touches the ball, what happens, what's the result, what steps did they take, what steps did they take towards the goal, and what steps did they take away from the goal. And it's something that in 1993, I was coaching a young man who shall remain nameless, but I noticed in his game that he caught the ball a certain distance from the goal. And when he passed the ball to someone else, he was always further from the goal. And that's something that you want to think about as a player when you're working on your individual skills. Are you getting closer to the goal and attacking and threatening, or are you fading and wilting off to the side and then just moving the ball on? And that's certainly something that to look at on film. And when you do watch games on YouTube, start thinking about who's threatening the goal, who's attacking the goal, and who's fading and wilting towards the sideline or the end line. That's going to be it for today. I got a great Facebook happy hour today at 5 p.m. If you have time, that's just a little bit over an hour and a half from now. So it'll be fantastic. We're looking forward to having you share some memories of your favorite NCAA championship games. But until then, I'm Booker Corrigan reminding you, you only get one shot at today.